Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We're just going to give everyone a little bit of time to pop in. While you're here, feel free to pop in the chat where you're from. We'd love to see where everybody's coming from. Any familiar faces or names out there? Just give it a couple more minutes. Happy Halloween. We hope you have your favorite snacks or your favorite candy nearby. If you are dressed up, please tell us what it is. If there are any other fellow Waldos in the house, always happy to see those. Couple more seconds here. Salt Lake is in the house. We love that. Pensacola. Tired suburban moms are always a big hit. All right. Scranton, PA. I'm a big fan of The Office. Roxanne is too. Awesome. All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone, and happy Halloween. No, this is not my regular attire, although I may have misplaced my goggles. So if you see them, please let me know. And officially, welcome to the second episode of Cadence Campus Live. This is a new monthly 30-minute webinar series, and we're going to give you the chance to spend some time with the people behind Mongoose, including your friendly client success managers or your favorite implementation specialist, as well as other Cadence users. Speaking of other Cadence users, joining me today are a pair of our favorite super users, Roxanne Stencil and Lauren Finley from Jacksonville State University. But before we get into some spooky tips, tricks, and treats from them, I just want to promote our next episode, which is going to be November 28th. And to help kind of showcase what it is we'll be talking about, it's going to be a deep dive into the power of some new Cadence automation. So we do need your help. So for a chance to see kind of what's coming, as well as a chance to win some goodies, we need you to text SWEET. And we're going to need you to text that to 716-300-5522. I'm going to see if we can throw that up somewhere. That number again, if you need it, 716-300-5522. There it is in the chat. Thank you, Ashley. So we're going to need you to text SWEET. We'll see a nice little sneak peek of what we're going to be working and talking about next episode. And so if you need to go ahead and do that, please do. So another friendly reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. We'll be able to kind of grab those as they come in. A couple of them we're going to answer just in the chat. We have Ashley helping us out, as well as Jen. And then maybe we can answer a couple of them live as well. So right now we are going to go ahead and get spooky. So Lauren and Roxanne, do you want to please introduce yourselves for some quick intros and what kind of like your experiences as well?
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Mongoose, for having us. My name's Lauren Finley. I'm Director of Admissions at Jacksonville State University, which is located in Jacksonville, Alabama. We're a four-year public regional institution. And in my role, I oversee recruitment, which does include recruitment communication, also dual enrollment processing and campus visits. So we are very excited to be here today and talk a little bit about how we utilize Cadence in just about every single day, every single conversation that we have at JSU.
Awesome. My name is Roxanne Stencil. I'm our coordinator of recruitment, communication, and technology here at Jack State. I actually started as a transfer admissions counselor, and then I was a senior admissions counselor. And then Lauren and the team created this role, which I'm so fortunate to be in and have had so much fun the last few years. And I'm looking forward to giving y'all some tips and tricks today.
Awesome. Thank you both. We're happy to have you. And to start off, I want you to just tell us a little bit about your relationship with Mongoose. A little bit about when did it start? What were some of your goals? What are those milestones? And then what are some of the results you've seen? Jen, I know you kind of pulled a little bit of some data points for us too, if you want to just dive into those real quick before Roxanne and Lauren kind of sound off on us.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So Lauren and Roxanne have been with us for a while and worked with a couple of different folks on our team over the years. Lena most recently before myself, but I was looking at some of their data and it's just been so impressive to see what their usage has looked like over the years. Even just this past calendar year, they've sent 3 times more messages than anybody else that stacks up similar to them in Cadence. But also their engagement is about double what other folks similar to them are seeing as well too. So those reply rates are still super high. They're definitely getting their messages out to folks, and their opt-out rate is like not even 1%, which is insane and amazing. So clearly these ladies are doing it right. So would love to have them showcase their tips and tricks for you all.
And we are glad to do it. So we started with Mongoose in 2018, and that was a pivotal time in Jack State history, really, because that was a time when we had a major tornado hit our campus. We had an EF3 tornado hit our campus, and we were also engaging in many changes strategically for enrollment management. We had just hired a new vice president. We had just entered a partnership with EAB. So just several things happening. And we knew that we had to do something different with how we were communicating with students. And the tornado kind of taught us that lesson of, we can't fully rely on phone calls and things like that, that students aren't really engaging with us. And we were kind of overworking our counselors with making these phone calls that students weren't answering. So we looked to any type of texting option. And what sold us on Mongoose and Cadence is just the ability for us to keep our personalized touch there, but go ahead and implement automated messaging. We were able to with CRM Recruit have a custom API integration. So that was great at the time for us. But since we implemented with Mongoose, and we'll talk probably more about this later, but we've seen really great success with enrollment. And of course, as you noted, with engagement. So we are very big fans of Cadence and have really appreciated the help from Mongoose in getting us to the point where we are now. But Roxanne is really our end user every single day. So I'll let her tell a little bit about from her perspective too.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started my role about 3 years ago now, I lost a phone number when we were switching out some staff members, and Lena was just so quick and sweet to be able to get that fixed for me. She had the IT team on that, and I just knew with this new role that I had a friend in my corner who could support me and fix anything. So it was kind of sad to see her move on to her new position, but I know we have a great support team, and anytime I have issues or trouble, I know that you'll all have my back, and you're always giving us great stats and helping us to analyze our data. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts of the relationship.
Shout out to Lena, who is on vacation this week because it is her anniversary today. And then I just wanted to point out that while I am living in Buffalo and a little bit sad because we are dealing with some snow today, I am thankful that we don't have to deal with any tornado fallout as well up here. So pros and cons, I guess, to every geographic place that you're going to be in. So a little bit now we're going to get into the good stuff. Can you kind of talk about any tips that you might have to those who are in similar kind of admissions or enrollment kind of focus seats that you guys are in as well?
My biggest tip is from a staffing perspective. So when we were looking at, we had implemented Mongoose and we had a lot of opportunity there, but we knew that we really needed to properly staff it in order to maintain the communications that are going out and really protect our brand and protect the students from being bombarded with too many messages. We are very strategic, even though we send a lot of messages on how we do that. So we were able to go ahead and have it approved for Roxanne to get promoted into this specific coordinator of recruitment, communication, and technology role. And so in her role, she is that main gatekeeper to ensure that our messages are not only consistent and they are not sent too often to students, but that they protect our brand and that they have the friendly tone that we are looking for. So that's really where I would first and foremost, if you're thinking about implementing Mongoose or you have not yet, I I recommend going ahead and looking at your staffing structure and see if there is a position you could dedicate.
And my biggest tip as an everyday user is don't be afraid to take the extra time to segment your communication for your transfer students, your students 25 and older, and your freshman students, and even your continuing students. That language needs to sound different to connect with those students. Use your resources. I use my student workers all the time. I'll say, does this message sound cringy or is this a good message? And they'll give me that feedback, especially on those freshman messages. And then the adult messages, people on our team, they're kind of more speaking that language. So I'm able to get more feedback on those messages. So definitely, even though it takes more time, be really intentional about the audiences you're speaking to. And I really do feel like that helps us with our opt-out rates, because students aren't just saying, oh, this is just a generic message everyone got. They feel like it truly is more personal for them. When it says as an adult learner, then they're like, wow, this is a place that I'm accepted and I can grow. And then especially if you're new to Cadence, really consider your personal accounts and your group accounts. We utilize our group accounts for event reminders. We do a lot with our events to text throughout the day, but the event reminders, they're coming from Jack State Admissions, that account, whereas students also have a text from their admissions counselor, and those are going to be more personal things. Make sure to turn in the scholarship. You started the application, but you're not quite done yet. Make sure to complete your housing application. How are you feeling right now? So try to make your group account the less generic or the more generic messages, if that's something that your team is capable of, just so students know that the relationship with the admissions counselor is truly valued.
Roxanne, we have a question from Frank in the chat that says, does all the communication go out via Roxanne, or does all the counselors send messages? So you kind of answered that a little bit, but can you kind of go into a little more, I guess maybe a little more detail about like how you decide which ones are going to go from a specific counselor, or how do you guys kind of split those up? Is it like geography? Is it by program, kind of those things? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have one transfer admissions counselor, and he also serves all of our continuing and adult learners. So those are segmented with him. And then we have admissions counselors for our freshmen based on geography. So they get introduced to them if they're in our system. Their 10th grade year, it's, hey, I'm your admissions counselor. I'm here to help. And each year they're getting a few more texts. And then senior year, we really start developing that relationship. And then if we have staff members change out, which does happen, we'll do an introduction text from that new admissions counselor so they can start cultivating that relationship. And then again, we just use the group accounts for more general reminders and sign those from the Jack State admissions team versus signing those from their admissions counselor's first name.
And I'll just mention, a lot of what we just discussed is automated. So the actual admissions counselor is not having to physically set that up. Our system is integrated into Mongoose so that we're pushing messages from admissions counselors, and that all of the students, regardless of your admissions counselor, are getting the same type of information. Where it does get different is the admissions counselors control the responses. They can do different segmented text messages. For example, if they go out to a school and they say, hey, I'm going to be at your school from 9 to 10 today in the lunchroom, stop by, they do that. But we work really closely with Roxanne and do a big communication retreat in the summer to plan out all of our messages for the year. So a lot of that is automated, and that is really great for the admissions counselor to have more time to dedicate to responding in a really personalized manner to the student, to pick up the phone and call them if they need to, just to have their staff time. Again, that's our biggest issue in 2018 after the tornado, and after we were kind of dealing with just endless amounts of phone calls that we're having to make. We were trying to be as strategic as possible with our staff time, and this has been a big part of that, how we automate a lot of the information.
Awesome. We have a couple of questions that I want to get to just because it is on topic. So Dana had mentioned that you mentioned starting texting with sophomores. Do you purchase those lists? How do you kind of cultivate those early relationships at such so where do you get those numbers from?
I would say both. So a lot of our sophomores are going to be our dual enrollment students. We have about 1,200 dual enrollment students at JSU. So a lot of them are just already our students. And then if they come on a tour, of course, they come through our system as inquiries. But we do work with EAB, and we do purchase names with our partnership with them. And so anyone who inquires through EAB does come into our system.
Awesome. And then one more question. This one is from Matthew Babcock. Can you talk about a little bit about the success rate on resending messages to those who don't necessarily respond from outreach communication? How do you balance that enough times to reach out to those non-responders before you end up being too pushy or too overbearing kind of thing?
Absolutely. So I think if people aren't opting out, they are somewhat interested still. So we keep them in our communication flows. Many times too, for instance, we had a preview day, and if students texted back, yes, I'd like the link, I'm interested in preview day, and then they didn't actually sign up for preview day, I was able to use a tag to later follow up with them and say, hey, you said you were interested in preview day, you haven't signed up yet. So you can use that same strategy with your students who aren't responding to text to target them again and say, hey, I see where we sent this text, we didn't hear back from you, just wanted to offer you this opportunity again. But as long as you're not sending more than 1 to 3 texts a week, I don't think the students are going to opt out if they do have that level of interest. And we make everybody opt into text. We don't automatically put them into text message. They have to check that box. So we just keep trying, and our numbers continue to increase. So hopefully we're doing the right things there.
Staying on Halloween brand and not letting them ghost you too hard.
Exactly.
All right, next question then. Can you talk a little bit about some of the tricks that you use to kind of have the best recruitment and admission cycles that you guys have seen while you've been at Jacksonville State?
So I'll just say we try to think of the text messages we get when we're going somewhere, to an event, or if you have a reservation at a restaurant, things like that, or checking in at a hotel. So for example, we took some inspiration from a hotel visit where once you checked into the hotel, like 2 or 3 days later, they sent you a text and said, hope you're having a great visit. Please text back if you need something for your room, things like that. And so we applied that same idea to our event communication. Like Roxanne said earlier, we do have our group account that sends out event information, but kind of even beyond that, when a student checks into one of our events, they get a check-in message like, we're so glad that you're here. Don't forget to view all of the things that we have going on throughout the event. And then 2 hours into the event, we send another message that's like, hope you're having a great time. Most of our events do have some sort of a football game or a baseball game. So it'll remind them of the game, how to get into the game. So we really try to utilize that personal kind of casual conversation while they're there at the event to capitalize on them being on our campus.
My favorite trick so far, we have something I've created called an admissions email guide, and our student assistants, they do hop in our group text accounts and help reply to text there. And then our main admissions email account, they help us there as well. But that admissions email guide has any answer you need for any question. And if it's not there, I tell the student assistants to let me know so I can build out that answer. So everyone who emails us or texts us is getting a consistent response because they can find the answers in that guide. They can put their own personal twist on it, but the core of that information is typed out the same. So that is definitely my favorite admissions trick.
Awesome. I love it. We just had a question from Jake. Is that event automation communication test, is that set up via Cadence, or is that like in your CRM? Can you talk a little bit more about I guess the little bit of the logistics behind those?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is through our custom API integration. And we actually have QR codes that we scan when a student arrives on campus, and that checks them in our CRM recruit system. And then a workflow runs and automatically sends that text message to them. And then after the event, they get a text about a survey. And if they didn't attend, that workflow will actually say, we missed you at the event. So it's pretty advanced, but our IT guy is pretty awesome and sets up anything that we need.
Awesome.
And I saw the question, we are using Recruit and we are on premise. So we do have a little bit more freedom to customize things because of that. And again, I have to echo, IT support is very, very strong, especially with a software like Recruit. It's not as user-friendly, but we have an awesome IT guy.
Awesome. Can you talk about a little bit when you have those kind of big events on campus? This question is from Matt again. How involved are you as admissions counselors and recruiters in during those events? Are you relying more on the automation kind of thing, or are you kind of being heels on the ground kind of thing?
So most of our events, we do require admissions counselors to be at the event. It just depends on the event type, but like for our open house, for example, all of them are there, and we establish roles in advance of our events to say, hey, you're going to be at this location, or you're going to be the person checking Cadence. And so we actually do have someone dedicated to make sure that if a student texts back and they say, I can't find a place to park, or where do I go for this? We actually have a dedicated person on event days. It's usually Roxanne, but checking Cadence and our email just to make sure, because we do have a lot of things that they can choose from that day. So we want to make sure they're not confused. And that's been very helpful. On any event day, we just have somebody dedicated to checking text messages.
The main takeaway for these tips and tricks are find a Roxanne. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. No, for real, that is like one of my biggest tips.
Love to hear it. All right, I have one last question before we can kind of dive a little bit more further into the Q&A later. We have about 9 minutes left, but can you talk about what you consider to be treats? What are the big wins or the little wins even that you're kind of taking time to celebrate each and every day, or through your different cycles?
I'll go ahead and then Roxanne can fill in. We have had record enrollment the past few years, thankfully, as an institution. And so that's been great, of course, especially through the pandemic and just being able to sustain with all the demographic changes. But I think for me, what's really great is when I hear other offices on campus asking us what we're doing with communication, because we have had such a high level of customer service towards our students that when they get to JSU, they're used to a specific level of information and outreach. And so we're looked to on campus as the office of the best practices in communication. And so I think that's like a big win for us as an office. But of course, as a university, we've had really great success with enrollment the past few years.
Absolutely. And I'll say my biggest win the last few years, in combination with doing communication, I also manage our student assistants in the office, and just being able to set up that program and have such a high level of customer service from our students, it's just phenomenal. They care so much about our prospective students, and seeing them grow as leaders in their time here is fantastic. And having tools like Mongoose where they can text a student back to follow up a phone call, so the student has the link that they were talking about for the housing application or the scholarship application. That's just been really cool to see the tools that we have utilized so well the past few years.
That's great to hear. I had a question. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about choosing your student workers, and how much kind of like freedom do you give them when you have them being the ones to respond or kind of answer those more frequently asked like student-centric questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we leave our job application open all year, which is really nice because people are applying all throughout the year. And then as we have positions open up, then I'll look at the resume. Sometimes I'll have Lauren and my supervisor, Noelle, assist me with that process. And then we'll bring several student workers in for interviews. And we're very, very selective during that interview process. We'll bring in several candidates so that we can choose the best students to fill the positions. Of course, they have class schedules we have to work around, but I'll do anything I can to have the best students here on the team. And then as far as the job, they all have very different personalities. They're involved in different things. So find a diverse group of students because they can all connect with different people. But then they do have the responses built out so that they're not on their own replying to messages. But then again, they put their personal spin on that. Somebody may ask about nursing and they'll say, my friend's in the nursing program and loves the virtual simulation patients, just things like that. But then they do have the guidelines they have to follow. So that's worked very well for us. And they are paid through the office. We pay the student workers, and then we have some work study student workers as well.
And I'll just mention a lot of them are our ambassadors. So they are coming to us from that program. But I have to brag again on Rox and what she does with training them, because it is very intentional of the guide that we have, the communication guide, just ensuring that they have the answers if they and empowering them to answer with the information that's provided. So the training is really specific to, I mean, we have great students in general at Jack State, but how we train them to be empowered to answer the question is all very intentional. I saw a question about, do we use the same number? No, our admissions counselors for those personalized inboxes, those are their specific number. It's a virtual number that Mongoose provides. And then if somebody calls that number, it goes to the admissions counselor's cell phone that we provide to them. And then the group inboxes, they are assigned various numbers, primarily one that we put on the website, like our main office. So there are different numbers.
Right. Okay, we have just about 5 minutes left, so I think I want to open this up to kind of the broad Q&A. So buckle up, Roxanne and Lauren. I want to first. There's one right away from Frank. How often do you update your lists, whether the prospect, deposited students, etc.? How often do you kind of like refresh those and update them throughout your cycles?
As far as our contacts in CRM, those are updated every 5 minutes from CRM to Mongoose. So if a number changes, that is, I guess, for lack of better words, almost automatically updated.
All right. I do have a question. You said earlier that there was a different person who was maybe in charge of like your adults and like continuing learners as well as the future students. Can you talk a little bit about like your favorite emojis to use when you are texting those future prospective students, kind of thing? Like, what have you seen would be some fun ones to use?
Sure. So with our adult students, we tend not to use as many emojis. With our transfer students who are 25 and under, we will throw in our chicken emoji, which we don't have a gamecock, but we will use the chicken emoji. But we try not to be as emoji heavy with those transfer students and more direct scholarships, advisors, let's get you in classes. Whereas freshman students, we're all over the board. I think we love the confetti emoji. We use the thumbs up emoji sometimes, but then I Googled it and found out that Gen Z thinks the thumbs up emoji is rude. So we do have to stay on top of those trends. So I've tried to phase that out. Lauren, what's your favorite emoji to use?
Oh gosh, I do love, I guess I'm old school. I like the thumbs up. But
That's why it's important to have student workers.
Exactly. Yeah. The chicken is really all of our favorite.
Yes.
Because we are the
so your mascot matches with something close that you can find in the emoji list. Can you talk about the timing? I know you said you have like kind of like a communication like plan in the summer, like a planning period or whatever. Can you talk about like the importance of kind of being like proactive versus reactive, and how you kind of like there are students who are on such different schedules. Any tips on like that kind of like any tips? Just to keep talking so I don't have to.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think for us, that summer period when we do review all of our communication plans and Roxanne leads that, and we kind of refresh the tone if needed, that's really proactive. Unfortunately, you get into the season and then you notice your apps are down in an area, or, the event registration is lower than what you would have hoped. Then you kind of have to be reactive. And then that's when you send out messages that weren't part of the plan. And so that's where Roxanne is really our gatekeeper, because she'll remind me and say, hey, I know we need to send this message out, but just so you know, we do have a text going out this morning. Would you be open for us to wait a few days on this message? And I appreciate that so much as her supervisor, to know that she's really, again, that gatekeeper, and we're not bombarding students, because that would have just been kind of defeating the purpose of the reason to text anyway. So that's huge for us to have her ability to keep our best practices in line.
And I've been really intentional this year about trying not to text students during the school day. I know some students do half days their senior year, different things like that. But I have tried to schedule a lot of our texts from the admissions counselors at 2, 3, even 4 o'clock. They're working until almost 5 o'clock, so they can respond to those messages, but we're not sending them at 11, 12 o'clock, distracting them from school and just giving them that bad impression of Jack State that we're trying to interrupt their school day to get them to think about college. Focus on that and then focus on us in the afternoon.
And we basically never text on weekends unless it's an event day. However, we do have one text message that can go out every single day, and that is our birthday text. One fun thing that another trick or treat for y'all, every single student, we have their birthday in our system. And so why not send them a nice little birthday message and make their day? It's one of our most engaging messages that we send for sure.
I love it. So we are just about at time. I want to thank Lauren and Roxanne. Thank you both for joining us today. I want to give another friendly reminder to text the word SWEET to that number we shared earlier. The number is 716-300-5522. So you're going to get a little sneak peek at what we're going to be talking with next week or next month with Jeff Campus. He is in our product team. We're going to do a little deep dive on automation. And then please remember to go to subscribe to FYI, the For Your Institution podcast. Our host, Gil Rogers, while I may be trying to take the title of host with the most, there is a reason that he has that title to begin with. He and his guests are really diving into some really interesting topics. So feel free to go and subscribe to them. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. That's all we have time for. So thank you again. Happy Halloween, trick or treat, and we'll see you all next time.